Three, two, one.
Light them up.
I'm Paul.
This is Buck.
This is the Paul and Buck Show.
Hey, the big Buckin deal. Hear us. Download the latest app at paulandbuckshow.podbean.com.
Hi, this is Oscar Vera. I'm here with Paul and Paul for the Big Buckin Deal Show
There you go. All right,
There you
awesome,
go.
man. I love it.
on a
We're
Tuesday night.
Yeah,
We are back, and he's going to be our host for today. And
yeah. He's got some good tidbits of the exciting
the world of model cars.
World model car this weekend you had in Austin, Texas. Right?
It was my first time. Oscar, he's a veteran of that, and got me into model cars. And for my first time, didn't know what I was getting myself into. I'm thinking I'm going to a hot rod car show, and when I get there, it is nothing of what I thought it was going to be. Man, it was not. There's no drag radio. There's no 10 and a half.
Exciting. It's exciting. It's new. So
yeah.
Oscar, man, fill us in and tell us about the weekend.
Well, this weekend, the Austin Modeler Society, along with the IPMS, had a model car contest, and it's an annual deal. They had it out at the Travis County Fairgrounds, and they've been hosting a show for, well over 30 years, maybe 35.
Right.
And so I invited these guys to go to it. I'd been to it many times before at different locations. I mean, we've had that show at Camp Mabry. We've had it at Holiday Inn in Austin. It's just a different locations. But they've made the fairgrounds their home now.
So this time they did at the expo where they do the
roundup,
the Lone Star Roundup.
Right.
So that's where we went.
So yeah,
Nice.
That's where we're at. It's pretty nice, and it's a combination of, it's all plastic, but combination of plastic models, airplanes, military, ships, boats, cars as well.
Yeah.
And it's a worldwide organization.
I love it because they have it broke down by classes. Do they have it like, is
Yes,
it separated? It's not
different.
just one open class.
It's different, so that's why I said, Oscar, come on and explain how these classes are organized in that event. They're a little different. It's not normal.
Well, I didn't bring the rule sheets
Yeah,
with
yeah.
me,
Right,
but I
but-
can pretty well explain what they are. Of course, they have divisions like the military.
Right.
They'll have
Like-
science fiction. They'll have figures. In science fiction, they have a bunch of Star Trek stuff, models.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sci-fi.
Yeah. And then, of course, military tanks, armory. And in the cars, you can have, there'll be trucks and motorcycles, choppers, different scales, all the way from HO scale to 1/16th scale. And some are pretty big, especially the figures are pretty big, but there's a lot of talent in this country of people that build model cars.
Wow.
And you would think it's for young kids. It's not.
No, these guys in there, the ones that were doing the World War II stuff,
Yeah.
man, them guys were.
Oh
just-
yeah, they
you
probably
can't-
been doing that for
Yeah.
decades.
You can't
probably.
beat those dudes.
And them guys, they went through it. I mean, most of them guys were military guys
Yeah.
that went through the war themselves, and
Yeah.
so they have a lot of that knowledge, kind of like we do with cars. But and then they read a lot of books. They do their research because especially in military, when we build cars,
Yeah.
we build them to look like some of the local racers, some of the national cars,
Right.
but these guys do, the military guys do Russian, Italian, Iranian.
Right. Military. Like,
Yeah.
And I thought
Japanese.
Top Gun was gonna be popular. It was
No.
not with them dudes, man. Them dudes are not.
They're more nostalgic
They're not.
and like.
They're not into the movie at all. Well, if they are, they're like screw that shit. We lived it.
Star Wars is very
Yeah.
popular with that group.
Yeah.
But that was this past weekend in October. San Antonio is going to have their show in February, so we're looking forward to going to that. They're gonna have it in New Braunfels.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll go.
Is
to
either
that.
one of the shows here in Austin and in San Antonio? Is it one bigger than the other? Pretty much the same
They're
turnout.
pretty much the same. Yes. Yeah. I would say they
But
attract about the same
equivalent.
amount of people.
How many people do you think there were there that day? It was pretty
Gosh, I would say in and out. Of course, the show started at 9 and
Yeah.
ended at 4, and there was it kind of lulled out about 3.
Yeah.
But I would say at any given point, there had been 800 to 1,000 people. I would think. I
There
would
was-
guess.
Yeah,
But
yeah, because there was quite a bit, and I thought, I'm like, man, is this all the model cars? You know, like maybe 10 on the table.
Yeah.
Man, by 12 noon, 11 o'clock,
Yeah, they
it
were
was
full.
4 times.
Yeah.
My car got pushed around a little bit. I mean, just to make room every like.
yeah, and I've been to shows, in the Dallas Fort Worth area back in the 80s and 90s, and they were, I would say, 4 times bigger than this show
Really.
back in the day. Model building is kind of going away, fading away, but just with even some of the older people are fading away as well. But it's still popular, and because I don't think that the local Austin chapter could have brought in that many people. It's a lot of it comes from that national IPMS.
Right.
I couldn't tell you exactly. It's International Plastic Society or Modelers Society.
Wow.
IPMS, yeah.
Yeah.
And the good thing for our area is that the IPMS is going to host in San Marcos in March their nationals.
Oh, they're going to host a national?
It's going to be a national event in San Marcos, Texas. So there's going to be people from all over the country and probably all over the world. So it's going to be a big deal. I don't know exactly where they announced it there on Saturday, but I didn't get the sheet on it to know where it's going to happen. But it'll be big.
Do you plan on attending?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that once you go to one of these, you're kind of hooked, man, because it's kind of like it's like a downsized version of a big car show.
Oh yeah.
I wish it was all cars, not because the planes overtake this show. But
well, they're a big scale. What's the scale of someone like the
but they do. If you get a military plane and do a 25th scale, it'd be huge.
Yeah.
So they go down to what 54th scale or 50th scale or 32nd scale, and sometimes even smaller.
Wow.
And even then, they're big.
I would say, they take a lot.
There's 2 people that walked in with like a Pirates of the Caribbean shit. I mean, they're just holding it. I mean, it was a real ship from back in the day, but man, they were holding it and started from a distance. And we just kind of stopped. We just kind of stared at that ship just go across everybody's heads.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, look at the thing, it's sailing across.
Was it like in 2 pieces, or were they like
no, it was complete.
one piece?
It was complete on a piece of board, but it was huge.
And the really neat thing about attending one of these shows, me as a car builder, I can build a car in a couple of weeks, a month.
Right.
And in a year, I'll probably put out 12 models. Some of these guys that build the ships and some of the military stuff, they do it. It takes them a year, and the detail in them is totally awesome. I mean, you could look at it all day long and find detail.
Yeah, one of the guys that was with us that won, Will, he took second place, and in the same category that I was in, because there really isn't a way to. They don't have the cars separated into what kind of cars they are, so he put it in just what's called a street machine class. But just like the guys that build these planes that can take up to a year, I asked Will because the work that he had involved. I said, "How long does it take for you to build a car?" He goes, "Oh, and I wish he could have made it here because he would have explained more. His little car, just one car, took him 3 months, on and off, but it took him 3 months. Right. And when I mean detail, I mean he covered the wiring that was going through the firewall into the engine with
the loom,
hand woven loom with thinner wire, just to make it look very real. And he only came in second place because there were these other guys that were doing all kinds of other stuff. So it gets, I mean.
And on his interior, you have molding on a real car molding. He cuts little bitty strips and he puts them in there to
tuck and roll.
Like an insert.
He did an insert tuck and roll, pleat by pleat. He did it, and then the seat. Let's say it's Naugahyde or something.
Yeah.
It's slightly a different color from the carpet, and I'm like.
Oh, that's detail.
I wanted to just pick up my cars and just kind of go back home with them. Like, there ain't no way I'm going to keep this.
And a lot of them, you got to give the guys credit when they do the military and the ships. And it's all a lot of scratch building. On the cars, we scratch build a little. We'll build, bend some headers with a candle or something. But these guys scratch build a lot of their parts. I mean, just about everything. 80% of a kit's probably scratch built. There was a guy there that had some military trucks that were weathered out of the Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah.
He had 3 vehicles. They were totally 100% scratch built, and it's
I
just
wouldn't have
amazing.
even known.
It
I'm
looked
looking at 'em.
authentic. I mean, it
Yeah.
looked like
Yeah, they look real. They look real.
yeah.
But he
That's
does his research.
there's patience. Got a lot of patience and a lot of skill. I mean,
It's a hobby that they dedicate
Yeah.
to doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have any other hobbies because this thing, if you're into that, I mean, it's gonna take you a while, you know.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
all. That he lives for that.
And I can ask Oscar because he's one of those, but he's into gassers, altered funny cars, and you know what it takes to build something super period correct
Yeah.
or down to the because he's got his cars and then he's got the cars that you whip up for
Right.
fun. But when you see the ones that he has on the wall that have
Oh, yeah.
won some shows
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
those are the
yeah.
ones like, man, it's gonna take me a while to get up to that status, and then you realize I don't know if I even have the time to get up to that
Well,
status.
that's the
It's like,
thing,
damn,
You know,
Well, I've been doing it since I was 12, so I've
Yeah.
got a
Lot
long
of-
head start on
Well,
you.
It's
like I said,
hard.
I can remember we all played with model
Yeah.
cars. And, as kids, it's like let's put together. You got glue marks,
Yeah,
handprints on the
walk
windshield,
away.
you know, everything like shit. It don't,
The
so but
handprints.
then you go on and then you get a little older.
Yeah.
Okay, you start, but it does acquire. You got to acquire certain.
You know, I bought a model car, the same model car. I bought that damn thing like 6 times, and over like between the age of 8 and like 15. I bought that car at least that many times
Mhm.
because the glue would frustrate me, and
Yeah,
my
the
wheels
cement.
wouldn't land, it wouldn't stand right.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I overglued it. Now my axle.
yeah. Yes, there is a thing called overgluing. You
Yeah.
put that wheel on, it splats out, and the next thing you know, the axle just
Well,
Yeah.
what happens, that glue is so hot, really, when
Yeah.
you put it so much of it,
It-
that it burns
it
the
burns that plastic.
It melts it.
so that's.
And me and super glue don't get along. If
Me
I
and
was
Super Glue get along. I was surprised that he said he don't get along with
It's-
it.
because
it's cement,
if
huh?
I was super gluing something, it would be glued to my fingers. You know, it wouldn't come
Yeah.
off.
yeah. That's
And you don't want to do it on a painted body.
That's the way
you know.
we went. That's the way we were as kids. Like you get this, and you get handprints on the windshield, and
Yeah.
it's like crap like that. So it's the
Yeah.
patience. It's something you got to acquire. You got to learn. You got to learn your tweezer. All that other stuff that you do, and as far as building.
there's a word for that when you see a model up for sale. Sometimes they call them glue bombs.
Yeah, glue
Yeah,
bomb.
glue bomb.
Is that right? Is that just a word of like it's just
Well,
Thrown together?
Yeah, they throw them together and they with a bunch of glue, and you
Bunch
can
of glue.
really, literally see all the glue.
You know, when he got me started, he
Yeah.
gave me a few boxes, right? He says, I don't know if you can put them all at your house, but go through them, figure out what you want to do with them, put some together, and
Yeah.
then we'll go from there. I said, okay. And then he
Yeah.
tells me, this is what you got to do to take, glue off and or paint off. So he had me going. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I learned how to strip the paint off plastic. I learned how to remove stuff without breaking it when it's a glue bomb.
oh yeah,
And,
yeah.
so I learned. I think I put like 3 or 4 cars together out of all your parts.
You've done 2 so far.
Two so without drive shafts. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a key element. Forget the dry shafts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a big learning curve on model
Yeah.
cars.
Yeah.
When they come from the factory, when they're what do they call
Molded
it?
or-
Mold. Yeah, they got mold release on them. So you got to wash the bodies real good before you paint them. A lot of kids would just spray paint them with
Without-
that mold release on them, and then they would fish eye or they would
Oh,
wrinkle.
yeah.
Well, that
That's a
157 Corvette, that 55, that one that was a friend of yours, it had super glue. It was
Yeah.
super glue. It,
Yeah.
it wasn't painted, but it was all super glue. So when I just dipped it in the solution. I think I
And
left
really,
it there
there's
for like 2
I
weeks.
use mineral spirits.
Yeah.
You don't want to use lacquer thinner, but I use mineral spirits to somehow it reacts to that glue in the plastic, and it doesn't melt it.
Releases them.
It just breaks it. And there's a lot of guys that what they do is they'll put a body that they want to take a windshield off, and they'll put it in a Ziploc bag full of water, throw it in the freezer and freeze it, and it gets so cold that it just snaps right off. You got to be very careful
Yeah, it
because
could break some other things.
Yeah, you break other stuff.
Man, the things too, like when you have all the little components on the little frame, you got to break them off, and you
Right.
always break them off, and it always leaves like the excess.
Well, you
like
got to
the-
sand that
Yeah.
off.
Sand it?
Yeah, you sand it down. And
Yeah.
you got to be very careful.
that,
'cause-
or like I used to use like a X-Acto knife. And
Yes,
just,
yeah.
whatever.
The wheels is real noticeable when you don't cut off, because
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of tricks. I'm sure that people don't know or do know, but there's stuff that you have
And
to follow.
tonight, I was showing Paul a dragster, but I had, before I came here, not these tires, but, I put these on a little Dremel or a little...
you scuff them up?
Yeah, and I drill them, and then I put a file or sandpaper, and then they slick them up, and they're not shiny anymore, and they look like they've been down the track.
They like a track. Yeah.
And if you do it long enough, they'll it'll look like you get that VHT on the tire.
Oh, like some glue on it.
That build-up rubber. That's
what
they look like when you go really fast.
Yeah.
See, that's
that's
the
little
good detail.
detail.
Yeah, that's the detail stuff.
Yeah. Some of the models that I want to do. First, I wanted to do the stuff that I did way back in the day, right? When I was a little kid, just the ones that are already in the box.
You're still a little kid.
I'm still 20.
You're a big kid now.
So the ones that I want to build, though, man, are the ones with today's stuff. Drag radial, with the new wheels. And man, the model car world has not really picked up to the new cars because I guess the hobby's kind of getting lost a little bit, and so you're not seeing too much. You're seeing a lot of remolds from back in the day.
Yeah.
But when they release a new car, it's not really one of the new drag cars.
Of course. Yeah,
So
I know
like,
what you mean.
I don't know when they're gonna do.
Well,
some of the new
for
stuff.
the manufacturers to come up with say you wanted to build a 78 F Mustang, the Fox body or something.
Yeah.
Well, it would cost the AMT or Revell almost $100,000 just to make the mold.
Just to get one production.
So just think how many models they have to sell of that Fox body. A lot of people like them. There's probably three at this
you would
table.
think they probably would be pretty popular. That was the start of another generation of Mustang. I don't know. But
and they did try it, and they have come out with them, but it just costs so much money to make a mold.
Or at least make a kit to sell the drag radial tires that they have now, because they're still doing the same. What is it, like a 29 and a half, 10 and a half flip, or you go to the 31, super wide. And those are the only two variations of slicks that they sell besides the NASCAR.
Yeah. But
slick,
we're down here in Central Texas, and where there's probably not any hobby store that has any of that stuff. But if you get on Google or the aftermarket guys all over the country, and they may not even be in Texas, you can with a 3D printing, they'll print whatever tire you want with any logo on it.
Right.
I mean, but it's expensive. It's not cheap. But they can do it.
That's a good point because the 3D print you can do a whole.
You can build a
that
whole
opens
body.
up a whole scheme of things.
Well, there was a guy there, and he had been doing that stuff. And trust me, he had a line of guys there, girls too, just asking him, "Hey, so, they wanted to get some answers. Hey, what kind of resin are you using for your tires?" And he stood right there. He says, I've worked so hard at it to get the right compound mixture. I can't tell you. Yeah. He actually told us straight out. And then another guy says, "Well, what are you using for the resin for the engine part?" Because he had like a little display of like 12 engines, And I mean, it was like from flatheads to twin turbo LS motors. I mean, he had them there, and he was the only guy that had the modern stuff. But people kept saying, "Oh, so." What are you using for the 3D printer? He did not want to get it.
I don't blame him because anybody, Dick and Joe can come and do a 3D print. They can,
especially if he's out there selling. There's some. I'll give you one example. That car sitting behind me is a '68 Camaro, and they make a model of that car, and it's probably going to have the grill that you got.
Yeah.
But some people want the RS SS with the hideaway lights.
Yeah,
and somebody will have to. They didn't make it, so somebody would have to hand bake it, make a mold out of it, and then do it in resin. And if you're lucky enough to find one, you might pay $10-15 for it, and put it on a model, and then your model will be correct to your car.
Yeah. And I tried about a few months back. I failed, but I realized what kind of resin I needed, and I guess the only reason why I failed was because I learned something new. Resin on the shelf or this stuff it adds a shelf life. Yeah. And so the stuff I put in there overnight, I'm thinking, man, I got it right. I followed YouTube, and in the morning I open it up, and I'm like, why didn't it harden? Did I do the harden mix? I mix a lot of fiberglass Bondo, so I know, and it was pretty much the same type of ratio kind of stuff. But the stuff, I called back the shop and said, "Hey man, this stuff is shelf life. It's done." So anyway, so they took it all back and closed down.
I like the way you said that. That the model cars that are coming out, they're retroing stuff from the. They're not doing nothing remolding, doing some new stuff. Because like I said, there was always like 160, and it was always the same 68
red one.
It was a red one, yeah.
Side pipes.
Or there was a white one. Actually, that was 69. The 69 one was. Anyway, so it's like, to your point, they didn't make a combination of RSSS or it was the one you found was there was a convertible version. Yeah, there's one that's got to be something unique that you would think would gain a lot of popularity. But I guess, to your point, I guess it costs so much money to make this. They need to sell so much to recoup their money, and they're not going to do that.
Right. Well, one of the other half that Oscar went out there is he rented a section there for the swap meet because they had that swap meet was big. Half of the building was.
Oh really?
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh man, you're talking about.
So you just got a bunch of this.
Yeah, people go there and sell their overstock models, parts, whatever you want.
Right.
And there's some guys that are doing aftermarket stuff, so they sell magazines.
Okay, that's big.
It's just like a big old swap meet,
well,
like going to Pate for the real car
for
guys.
model cars, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So these remolds, these releases, man, they're making a killing off them because they'll buy them. They'll buy them, at the original ones. They'll buy them. They didn't sell them, and then the new one comes out. Well, now the old one goes up in price. So now you're selling one of the old ones for anywhere between. I bought one that was a re-release, but I paid almost $40. And it was there, and I'm like, man, I could have got it from that other guy, and then I go to the other guy, and the other guy had already opened his. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the difference. And then there's another guy who's got it, but he took like the engine out of it, and I'm like, well, that's only $10, $15. Do I have a spare?
Well, model cars is a disease, or an addiction. It's like a real car guy when you go to a swap meet or wherever you go to buy parts. You got to have it, and you don't care what it costs. You just want it, and you buy it. And then after you've bought it, you walk down to the next table, and you see one that's a little cheaper. And you go ahead and buy it.
Just like a swap meet.
Yeah, you go ahead and buy it anyway because then your average is,
Let me ask you this. I've seen your collection. And some of your collection is pretty unique. I mean, there's stuff that as just a novice or somebody, you go to Walmart. Yeah, you always see. Back when they used to carry fucking models, they don't carry shit. No. You gotta go even when you go to Hobby Lobby or something that it's always those same ones.
Right.
And you got some pretty unique ones. Now, were those bought or did you
No,
customize?
they were all bought, but they were bought back in either the 80s, the 70s, or the 90s, and
that's where the good stuff was.
Yeah. And if I decide I want to build a model that came out back in 1998, I probably have it on the shelf. You couldn't find it at any store.
Yeah.
You may find it at a swap meet, or you may find it through a friend.
Is that where you found a lot of your stuff at? Was like at swap meets or
a lot of them are, and a lot of them I bought myself or I bought them at the swap meets. And I do belong to a lot of Facebook groups.
Okay.
I buy a lot through eBay.
Okay.
eBay has
good,
but you got to pay up the nose for it.
Yeah, of course. I can only imagine. Like I said, some of those hard to find ones. Like I said, you always seen those ones. Like in the 80s,
right,
90s, they're like, oh yeah, and then you wouldn't see them. Then when you, I guess in the later part, 2000, whatever it may be, you always seen those same freaking ones on the shelf. Like,
it's kind of like not to get off subject, but it's kind of like Hot Wheels. You go to HEB, Walmart, where they sell Hot Wheels,
right?
And you walk down the Hot Wheel aisle, and they might have 500 of them, but they're all common stuff.
Right.
Yeah, all the good ones are gone.
They call them peg warmers.
Yeah. All the guys in the warehouse got all the good ones, and they're selling them on eBay or wherever. And they're hard to find, but occasionally you do. But yeah, that's what you're going to find at Hobby Lobby. It's all the common stuff.
You know what? One guy we know that's actually real big into the Hot Wheel collecting world, I guess. Jesse Garza, the Camaro, his son.
Oh yeah.
He's on a page that I'm on
nice.
Facebook, and these guys, I don't know how much he does, but I know him and there's a few other guys. They actually scout the stores, usually in the mornings when the truck arrives, something like that, and they find the ones that are they're called treasure hunts, right?
Yeah.
And so you know what you're looking for already if you go through like the Hot Wheel website or whatever.
See,
so you can collect them. You know,
Hot Wheels puts out a number on each of their, because there's 72 Hot Wheels in each box when they come to the store. Hot Wheels ships them out in a box, and there'll be 72 Hot Wheels in there, and it'll have like a code on it.
Yeah.
And in that code, and Hot Wheels puts it out. They'll know. These guys know if there's going to be a treasure hunt in there or something special.
Right.
Is that right?
And that's what they do. They go
it's all
to
inside jobs, man.
It's inside job warehouse. By the time they get to the shelf, somebody done took it. Yeah.
So you wonder how some of these guys get all the good stuff. That's how they do it. You know?
Yeah. In Austin, the whole central area here, it's dry. You can't, unless you are in that competitive world, you're not going to find a certain car that you're looking for. Because believe me, there's probably about 50 guys here in the central area scouting the stores at this very
And
moment.
you could get lucky. You walk into a Walgreens, let's just say a Walgreens, and nobody thinks about buying a Hot Wheel in Walgreens because they're, instead of 99 cents, they're $1.29.
Exactly.
But you walk in a Walgreens and boom, there's a treasure hunt sitting there that nobody thought about going to that store. And then you could get lucky.
You get lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your, if you want to call it a career that you've been doing, or it's a hobby, right? So
it is a hobby.
It's a hobby.
It's swap meet hobby.
So, like, along the way, how many awards have you won? How many top sellers have you gotten? Have you made? I mean,
oh gosh, I couldn't tell you.
Like I said, you got a big collection.
Yeah,
so.
I've been going to swap meets and model shows way back, but out of town, out of my Corpus Christi area, back in the '80s, late '80s, I would go to Dallas, Fort Worth. We'd go to Louisiana, Oklahoma, Nebraska. You know, just wherever somebody would have a model show, we take off. And you know, if you did a swap meet and sold some of the models that we would buy at the Wynn's, the Wynn's store for $5, they were on
the
clearance.
Wynn's, they have Wynn's, yeah.
We'd buy them on clearance, and I'd gather up 100 that year, and then I would take off to one of these shows, and then I'd sell them for $20, and gosh, that paid for the weekend, paid for my trip, the hotel room, and the food, and I'd come home with money.
Damn,
It's just, I'm telling you, Hot Wheels and these model cars. I've only been in it with him for maybe a couple of years, and the world is, I mean, it's just as big as the big cars. And as a matter of fact, you know me, I've been doing shirts, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I got into these cars and I started posting them on there, along with because he's got a website, he's got a Facebook page,
yeah.
And so some of these guys came over to my personal. So I post a picture, and the next thing you know, I'm like, man, look how many likes I'm getting on these model cars, more than my shirts. Yeah. And I tell Oscar, and Oscar goes, man, this stuff is bigger than you think. And I'm like, I said, man, I can't save myself to put a T-shirt because I'll get 50 likes on the shirt, and then or the artwork, or and then I put one picture of a model car, and it's like over 100 likes. I'm like, what?
But it's all relative. You know, I got real cars. You have a real car. You go to the racetrack. And when you go to a race car show or racetrack, you see other cars. You say, gosh, I wish I had one of those. Yeah. But, you only got a 2-car garage. Where am I going to put it?
Right.
So,
put that in perspective.
You would want 4 or 5 of those cars. And if maybe you got the money to buy them, who knows? But
probably
regardless, where are you going to put them?
Yeah.
So what I did early on is I would build models of the cars that I like. And that's, they're easier to store.
Yeah, you can put them up.
Get great satisfaction.
They don't cost as much.
And it costs very little.
I got it.
Yeah, and I
can't get in it and drive it. But if I had the real car, I probably couldn't get in it and drive it anyway.
Like, how many cars do you have? Like, I got 2 cars. I got a 200, 300 cars.
Can't afford to keep air in the
I got 400 cars in my garage. What do you got? Yeah, that's the joke.
Yeah.
So, it put in perspective, I got all the cars I would ever want. I probably have in the model.
So how do you organize your Facebook pages? Because like me and Buck, we've got this page, and then we got our personal pages. How do you organize your model car pages? Because you've got several for certain type of cars.
Yeah, I do circle track cars. I got a couple circle track cars. I got a gasser one, and then I've got one that's just strictly hot rods. And when you start a page, you're there by yourself.
Right.
And you got to invite friends.
Right.
You're going to have friends, and you have something in common, especially if they build models. And that friend could be in California. He could be in Minnesota, Maryland, New York, wherever. And you invite them, and then they have friends that are into models. So then it just kind of multiplies.
Yeah.
So when I started the Gasser Kings, that only had like 35 members, and I think up to 400 members now.
Yeah. And I mean, and what's unique about it is that these guys that are on that page, because I joined it too, but they all in some way or form, they actually know each other. It's not just like a bunch of people that are on it and just hit like because it's something.
Right.
Like, these guys actually, these guys are they're grouped together. You know what I mean? Like they know who's building. It's kind of like they already know when a car goes up. You already know whose style that is and who's doing it. And if you go to another page, you're gonna be like, oh, he's on here too. You know, and wait, they're on this the same people on this page.
Yeah,
you know,
we're all
funny.
mutual friends.
Yeah.
But I had one group that I started probably a year ago called the Gasser Kings, and I only called it the Gasser Kings because I had a poster that a friend of mine had pinstriped.
Yeah.
And it had a Willis on it, Super Gasser. So I call it the Gasser Kings.
Right.
Well, a bunch of my buddies started posting pictures of altered wheelbase cars and just different type of race cars. They had straight axles, but they were altered. Somebody made a comment. One of the members made a comment that, these cars aren't gassers, and he was referring to the real class. In gassers, you can't alter the wheelbase or move the engine back or do the crazy thing like we do with plastic. And so I had to end up, to please him and some of the other guys or offend the other guys, I just changed the name and added AFX and altered wheelbase to the Gasser King. So, now it's open to, without getting criticized. Right. And I didn't care that he made a comment because it's my group. I do what I want. But I'm sure that the guy that posted that altered wheelbase, he may have got offended. I don't know. He may not have known. But, you don't ever want to put anybody down for any kind of model.
Because the stuff that these guys build, it does take time. And, sometimes there isn't a group for them. So, they find where you best fit and, that's the way it goes.
There's a guy that builds awesome gassers, but he builds most of his stuff for like street freaks. And if you know the difference between a street freak and a gasser, they're pretty basically the same, but they're like twice as high. They just the back and the front are.
And it could be a '78 Malibu.
Yeah, it could be anything. It could be a Rambler.
Something. I've seen all kinds of different creations, and I guess now the general term now for something that nosebleed high gasser.
But some guys will build a Camaro and think it's a gasser just because it's jacked up in the front, and if he thinks it's a gasser, let it be a gasser. I don't care. It doesn't bother
gas,
me.
Right? It takes gas. That's what it is.
If it were a real car, obviously they wouldn't let him run because in the gasser class you had to meet certain specs or certain rules. But it's all in fun. That's all.
So, how many pages do you have? Do you just have? I know you've got Gasser Kings, and you've got the swap meet page where you sell stuff.
And then I have a 29 through 48 or 25 through 48 model kits, and then I have some circle track, dirt track sites. They don't belong to me, but I'm an administrator, and I pretty much run them. And I change the banner on a weekly basis. Yeah. And now those two have been around quite some time, and there's upwards of 4,000 members in that.
Wow.
In that group.
So just going back to these shows that this one show that we went to, these classes, how do they classify them? Because I was thrown off big time. Street machine, open wheel. I'm thinking open wheel roadster. Now it's an open wheel F1 car. There's also a dirt track car in there.
Yeah.
Why do they categorize them so general or confusing? Because some of these guys, they knew which class to enter because they knew that they could win in it. And so if you took the wrong car and you put it in the wrong class, these classes that don't really apply to, let's say, an ultra wheelbase or even a 69 Camaro only. What's going on there? I mean, over the years, what do you see?
If you think about it, if you and Buck were going to run a car show, well in advance, you'd have to build or order a bunch of trophies. Yeah. So you have to kind of predict what people are going to bring. You don't really know. Yeah. So you set up some rules, then you set them out there. So open wheel would be like a car with no fenders, like a sprint car or a Formula One,
Yeah.
Indy type car with no fenders. Could be a street rod too. And if it's got fenders, then it's going to go into a stock body class, and it could be a circle track. It could be box stock. A box stock, for example, it's just a class of box stock, and that's exactly what it means. You take the box, you buy it at Hobby Lobby, Walmart, open the box, you build it out of the box, and you got to show the instruction sheet at the event, and so that they can check. You can't add aftermarket parts, you can't change the decals, you can't do certain things, but that's in the rules. So when it says box stock, they literally mean box stock. But they will let you, and then they have again, not knowing, in the hot rod class, a street machine. It could be street machines from '64 and earlier, and then it could be street machines '64 and later.
It says '59 and later or something.
Yeah. So they kind of break it up, and and again, when they have these shows once a year, they have a whole year to kind of plan it, and then they send out the rules like 6 months in advance before the show. So
what do you think are the kind of cars that some of these judges in those events, because they cater to a wide variety of cars, not just hot rods, muscle cars. What do you think is the general type of car to choose to build and take to one of these shows?
Well, you certainly want to build. You don't want to build to their pleasure. You want to build to your pleasure. Okay. So you're going to build a model the way you want to build it, and then you kind of have to fit it into a certain class. Okay. And the judges have to judge it that way. You don't want to build a car to please the judge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of these judges, they're looking for, this is a great, B-52 airplane or something, and so they'll judge based on the fact that somebody built a B-52, and
that's true. You could have there's some diehard in the real car world, diehard judges that are just Ford guys, and they don't care for Chevrolets or Mopars, right? And therefore they bleed blue. Right. You don't want one of them judging your Camaro, or, right?
Well, you'll never know what this judge is because they volunteer, right? They volunteer
they're volunteer.
I saw that. I was sitting there, and all right, who's going to volunteer to be a judge? And so I'm there. We could have easily raised our hands and been one, but I'm just observing and just kind of watching how it goes. And so these guys raise their hand, and I don't know how many there were. How many judges do you think
you would? Of course, they separate them, the military and then the sci-fi and all. They separate them, and of course they want somebody that, they want a car guy judging the cars. Mm-hmm. You don't want a car guy judging airplanes because we don't know anything about airplanes. Yeah. So, but you may have a model in that class, so you just pretty much have to say, "Hey, I'm not going to judge. I got a model in that class. I'm not going to judge. Get somebody else to judge." Yeah. Because you don't want to choose your own.
I know there was some of the cars that went in there were in this day and age. You have different cars, so there was a bunch of donks, some lowriders.
Is that right?
Oh man, these donks be with embarrassed. I mean, if you had a judge that was just like, I just like donks. I mean, and he would have picked like just two out of the ones that these guys took. I mean, those are Monte Carlo, man. That was just really nice.
I think it's Ram. They make Ram.
They order them. They're custom order.
Yeah, they order them. Right. Yeah. But there was that. Remember that hauler that was there? That was kind of a gold that was slammed down to the ground. Just a real nice hauler. There's a class called curbside. Curbside, and what that is, curbside is you build a model and you black out the windows. You don't do an interior. You don't show. You shut the hood down and no motor. There's no detail. It's all the curbside. If you're going to win on curbside, usually it's on the detail of the body, the paint job.
Okay. Right.
So
it's like curb appearance.
And that's what it is. Curbside.
I couldn't believe there was a 55 Chevy convertible that was there, and it wasn't there when I first went up to the table, and then I came back about 2 hours later, and then there it is sitting there, and I'm like, damn, I couldn't tell the difference between a die-cast model car and a plastic one, because that's how accurate this thing. Even the chrome was really chromed. I mean, it wasn't. You couldn't tell that it was painted. I'm like, this guy's he's gonna win something. He didn't win. I didn't see him get called up. So I
Well,
was
you
like,
know, what
what do you
happens
mean?
in a deal like that
Yeah.
would be my guess is that maybe his competitor in whatever class he was
Right.
in, maybe he opened the hood and showed an engine more detail. So you get points for everything that you show.
Mm,
And if you got a model like and the hood's shut,
Yeah.
the doors are shut, you don't see the motor and the underneath,
Yeah.
yeah.
and the judges really can't pick up a car.
No,
and
they
do
were
that.
saying, don't
They-
touch it, don't touch
Really?
it.
No,
Yeah.
they have to. If you want to show detail,
mirror.
you put a mirror underneath.
And believe
Yes.
me, they had some. pretty
Yeah,
good
they
moves.
had
like a low rider car show.
Oh,
Yes,
man,
exactly.
it was-
Or,
yeah,
And that's
crazy.
what's going to
Rotating.
get you the point. So the judges have a little sheet
Mhm.
that's probably adds up to 100 points. So you're going to do the exterior, the engine, interior, chassis, wheels, and for everything that's showing, you're going to get some points.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's just like a real car show. If you don't
Right.
open your hood,
Yeah, they're not gonna.
you're going to lose some points.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's why I realized that, man, my race cars, because a lot of race cars, they don't have chrome underneath unless it's
Right.
Yeah, it's a
you
race
know.
car. I've always,
Yeah, so this is what I
Right.
took. I took legit race cars and I placed them there, and then I even took one a '57 Chevy that I put the General Lee decal set on it, and because it was orange, and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna this. I mean, it went big in the gas world, in the real world. Everybody was like on my page, but at that car show,
That's
man, nobody
right.
gave
Yeah,
three
yeah.
shits about it. As a matter of fact, they probably would have been like, huh,
Yeah. But even though you get 100 points
Yeah.
for, and it shows for the body,
Yeah.
engine, interior,
Yeah.
chassis, wheels, they'll even give you extra points if you
Yeah.
have a model that shows all that stuff.
right.
And say you do a little display around it,
Mhm.
they might give you an extra 5 points. So you may
Wow.
have lost some points on the paint job, but you
Yeah.
gained it
On something
on a
else.
display.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on in this model car show world that for anybody that wants to get into it, I would say
Well,
build the best that you got.
Yeah.
Take your time, and it really it's down to the skill and how you present the car really at the show.
I've built models for so long and I've been to so many shows, and there's some shows where I got skunked, didn't win a thing, and then some that I got a lot of plaques for because a lot of guys knew me, or I'm guessing. But you want to build, of course, if you're a serious builder, you want to build and you want to win because you're competing. It's
Right.
competition.
Or competition.
But you can't expect to win. I mean, you have to go in there with the attitude that you're not going to win, unless you got a real nice car and there's a POS right next to it, and he wins. Then then you know
Oh
something
man,
wrong.
I was
somebody-
thinking for sure the
who
Starsky
gave
and
it that?
Hutch.
Gave some money here. Cheating.
Yeah, I thought for sure Starsky and Hutch was gonna beat me, man, because he was parked right next to me. I'm like, oh, that TV car is gonna get me. But no, it was.
And speaking of, some of the shows have a TV series cars.
yeah, they didn't have one there though.
Yeah, they didn't have one there that day, but they could have had the TV series cars, and they would be Starsky and Hutch, General Lee.
18, or General Lee, yeah.
Talk about
Knight
put a-
Rider.
So they do have a category, but not at this show.
Nah, well,
Yeah,
it
they
may
didn't
be February. They may have it.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
may
I don't
have it. It just depends on the venue or the club. That puts it
So
on.
going back, like talking about the weekend, you guys said that there was people from Canada. There was people from other states.
There was a guy from dude. There was a guy from Japan. He showed up from Japan.
So
I was just like,
international, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
well,
yeah.
it's. I don't know if this one show was international, but there was
Well,
a guy
I mean-
from Japan. There was one guy from Canada, and they won something.
Yeah.
And
So they're displaying.
the other guys were coming up from Dallas, Houston, Corpus. I mean, they were coming from different areas of Texas.
Yeah.
And
But
I'm like, wow.
if you know, like for example, the show coming up in March in
Yeah.
San Marcos, some of these guys that come from out of the country, if you know there's a show somewhere on a certain weekend and you plan your trip, it could be in Tulsa, Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
it could be in New York City. You may not just go to that car show, or you're going to go do other things. So that guy from Japan may have been here to do something else.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, he planned. Planned the weekend and
Go to the mall out here.
Well, I mean, the point being is that that
Yeah.
this is obviously worldwide.
The capital of Texas. Anybody can be here. So
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
true.
You don't know who's.
You don't know why they're here.
Yeah.
Because their job could have. He might have been with Samsung for all we know.
You never know.
Pretty much.
That's a good point.
Yeah, he came here and knocked 3 things with one stone. That's what it is.
Well, I mean, the point being is that like that people will travel. People travel. You said you've gone to Oklahoma, Louisiana, and stuff. So pretty much the same thing. But this was an event that it was an annual thing. It was
an annual deal.
Annual thing. So once a year. Do they have? Is it like a circuit? Is it like I might have it here, but you said here in Texas and Austin it's once a year. But do they have it somewhere else?
Yeah, that one in San Antonio, they call it Model Fiesta, and it wasn't. They're based out of San Antonio, but they're going to have the show. They moved the venue to New Braunfels. So and there's a big club, 2 clubs, as a matter of fact, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they have one in March. There's a big one in Houston.
Really? Okay,
As a matter of fact, the Houston chapter has 2 every year. They do one in November it's coming up at the Autorama. So it'll be strictly cars because it's Autorama. And then they'll have another one, kind of like we had this weekend. That'll be
Open
military,
everything.
open military.
I want to go to one where they have like the old Super Chevy show.
Well, they don't normally do that at those shows because they're outdoor events.
Right.
And a lot of people don't like
the cars
putting the cars outside. You got kids running around, and anybody could come and knock them. Yeah, so you're not going to find. I used to do them at a lot of Autoramas in Corpus, car shows. We'd have a table set up like this, and we put our models, display them. But they get dusty, and people want to pick them up. You can't control some people, and then you say something to somebody, and he's bigger than you are, and he wants to
talk to you. So the swap meet. What can you bring to a model car swap meet besides model car? Is it kind of like the big car swap meet where you can kind of take, you can take carburetors, valve covers, and stuff like that, T-shirts, paintings? What type of magazine? What can you take to a model car swap meet? Because it's just the downside.
Well, it's certainly got to be auto related.
Okay.
So you could take whatever's left over out of this box that I bought to build this model. If there's some a seat left over or a bumper left over, whatever's left over, wheels and tires, you can take that and put them in little bags, put a little $1 or $2. That stuff will sell because somebody's always looking for that. Magazines are good, and even the real car magazines, because a lot of guys buy the old hot rod magazines, street rodder magazines, because that's where they get their ideas to build their stuff.
Well, that's where these magazines, that's where this model car world came from, Rod and Custom, and where they shows,
a lot of my stuff is built from popular hot rodding and Rod and Custom.
So let's talk about that real quick. When you were growing up, and model cars weren't too popular in regards to the custom world, how did you get into it? What did you see and you said, "Oh man, I want to build some of those cars that they're going to be bringing out"? Because this was obviously like the early '60s. When
this was in probably 60. I was 12 years old, so I was probably 65.
Okay.
And the way I got started, of course, my uncle had a mechanic shop, and my dad loved hot rods and cars. But some of the older guys, there was some teenagers that lived up the street from me, and they had a bunch of what's known as promos. The promos are the cars that the dealerships used to give away when you buy a new car, and they were now teenagers going to high school. They were dating girls, and they want nothing to do with the models. So I'm a little kid. I'm 13 years old. They want to give them to me. So I take them, and so I'm in love with models. That's now I'm mowing yards, so I can go buy a $2 model. And but that's how I got started.
So those guys, because they were obviously building cars before the big hot rod craze and all this fancy artwork. The stuff from the early '60s, '50s, it was just your regular old 32 Ford original.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the older boxes, I didn't bring any, but it was called 3-in-1.
3-in-1,
3-in-1, and some are 2-in-1. But 3-in-1 meant that if you bought a 32 Ford, 36 Ford, or 40 Ford, 3-in-1 meant you could build it 3 different ways. You could build it stock, you could build it custom, or could build it drag, and that had enough parts in there to do all three of them. You couldn't build all three cars, but so when you decided which way you wanted to build it, you would have extra tires, the custom tires or the custom grills, or
right.
And
And
so
some of those models are still being remolded, a little bit reintroduced.
well, they reissue them, yeah,
Reissue,
and they change out some of the parts. Some of the original parts, for example, the 1950 Ford convertible had a Victoria top on it. Had a Carson top and a Victoria top.
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
really cool looking.
Yeah.
And you would have to cut the hard top off and put the Victoria top on it. Well, every reissue after that, and that was in the 60s, didn't have, it had the Carson top, but didn't have the Victoria top.
Oh, wow.
So to find a model on eBay or to find that top, which are pretty cool, you have to look at a glue bomb, for example, and I bought a few of them and used the top. I haven't had anybody make one for me. I guess somebody could cast it in resin, but
make it.
It's a lot of work.
I know I got one. You had a Model T, the Green Hornet. It was released in the early 60s, and for a while that they were releasing a bunch of Hot Rod magazine or Ride and Custom magazine cover cars.
Well, what was happening then, and you may be right, but like Ed Roth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He would do the Rat Fink cars, and all of the Ed Roth cars were built into models. Somehow they got licensed for him to do it, and then they would produce them. And
so how sought after are those model cars?
Well, they're sought after now because there's a lot of people out of California that follow that Rat Fink and Roth. I never did buy them. To me, it had to be a traditional car. For me.
How much those things? How much money do those models?
Well, they could bring anywhere from $20 to $200.
Wow.
Depend on the rarity and how bad you want it.
How much you want to spend?
You want it now? You want it later?
And I mean, all you have to do is go on eBay and look up vintage models, AMT, and you're going to see some high dollar stuff. Not that it's worth that. It's only worth it when it sells. I mean, it's only worth that when it sells. But some of these guys, there's the vintage, the Elegant series. There was AMT came out with the Elegant series in '66, I believe. They had a T-Bird, a Nomad, '57 Chevy, and 2 or 3 others.
Right.
And what that got you was they were molded in a different color. They had tinted windows, blue tinted windows. And today, any Elegant, if you can find them, they're upwards of $300.
Whoa.
And for some reason, they're all in Florida. Anybody that has them guys in Florida. I don't know why, but they're
the winds.
They stockpiled them over there.
So yeah, I got real big into the boxcar art because these guys back then, there's one or two guys that would actually hand draw the pictures,
right?
And so that's what drew me to these model cars. Every time you see a nice artwork, and so I would draw. I started drawing kind of. That's what I wanted to do. So what do you think at these swap meets, man? Me bringing some artwork that has that style does this still draw attention? That old school model car boxer, because the new model boxes are just photos of the actual car. The art side of it is lost, kind of, but.
Well, you can get on Facebook and there's groups.
Yeah.
There's one group that I belong to. I'm not very active, but it's called Box Art Models. That's exactly what it. Box art models. 60s box art models. So when you're belong to that group, these guys come up with all this. There's some box arts I've never seen.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they existed. But that's what they're all about. That's all they post is just box art stuff. And because of course I started collecting in '62, but models have been around long before '62. They were models in the '50s. As a matter of fact,
metal ones in the '30s and '40s, wasn't there? Like some
there was some metal stuff back then and wood.
Baseball.
And AMT, let me see, there was one of these model companies that you wouldn't think was, it had something to do with metal, American metal, something, was what AMT stood for in the beginning. And they were in Michigan. But and like the 49 Merc, that 49 Merc lends itself to Mercury. It lends itself to a custom, so it comes with a lot of different custom parts in that kit.
Nice.
And you can use them parts on other models, of course. You don't want you don't want to buy a 89 SS Impala and put fender skirts on it. That wouldn't. But somebody might do it.
That's crazy. Custom. I know one of the boxes that I was having trouble finding, because I could find it about 10 years ago, but it's the Stonewoods and Cook Willis.
Right.
Those are getting hard to find. I don't know what it is, but I didn't see them. I didn't see too many of them.
I didn't know if that was just a thing. I thought I seen this. It was just like it wasn't reality. I didn't know if that was a real thing. I think I seen it once. I thought it was like a fluke.
The what? The car?
The car. Well, no, that's the car, but the model.
Oh yeah, no, they had a black one because it was the early one, and then they had, the blue one because that was the early one, and then they had a black one. I bought the black one about 12 years ago, and I used it to build a custom 56 Chevy wagon.
In the 60s, Revell, I never bought too many Revells because they were too hard for me to build.
Yeah.
They had the opening doors,
they did.
steerable wheels, and that was way too fragile for me. I was the type of guy that when I bought a model, AMT, MTC were the best ones. I would slap it together, and it might roll, it may not roll.
Right.
But Revell had opening doors, and if you didn't do it right, the doors would hang and sag, and front end was. And they came out in the '63 with the Stonewoods and Cook initially, and it was the light blue one.
Yeah.
And they've reissued it maybe 2 or 3 times.
And that thing had opening doors and all that
opening
stuff.
doors, trunk, a hood, steerable.
And some of these tires, man, they were two-piece, so you had to first assemble the tire.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was like
Today it's still like
because
that.
The two-piece, they weren't spongy, they were hard.
They were hard.
They were like that one.
And it was a plastic. But some of the early AMT models, they had real rubber tires. Really? That if you put them, build that model, that would melt the wheel. The rubber itself would erode the wheel if it sat long enough.
Yeah.
And I've got models that I built back in the '60s that I put on in my shelf, and even on the glass, they stick to the glass. I mean, they kind of bond to it.
Kind of like the slicks losing air a little bit.
Yeah.
You got to go air them back up. Yeah, that's funny.
Wow. Like I said, that Revell was always the one go-to.
Yeah.
Like I said, that was one accessible. Like, as a kid, go to Walmart.
Kmart.
Mom, Dad, what's
Well, they had the '57 Chevy. They had the
Yeah.
Anglia. You couldn't buy an Anglia.
Henry J.
The Henry J. They had the cool models, but they were pretty complicated.
Right.
To say the least.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's interesting, man. For anybody that wants to go to the show, if you're into cars, I encourage you to go out there and go check it out. I guarantee you will come back with a few boxes.
With a bug, yeah.
Just to put it on your shelf. Guarantee you will try and build something that will resemble your real car. Yeah. Unfortunately, you will have to go to eBay to find your drag radial tires like I'm about to do.
Well, that and the decals. There's guys that make the aftermarket decals that they'll special.
There's body wraps today for Hot Wheels. Yeah. You just buy a wrap and you just put it on. It's not even paint. You just wrap it. Like, wow. $10.
And believe it or not, there's some guys that are into real cars and could care less about models. Yeah. They think it's a kid's hobby.
Yeah. And up in the East Coast, they take the bodies and put them onto the electric slot cars.
Yeah, the slot cars. Yeah,
those things.
I sell dozens and dozens of NASCAR bodies to the slot car guys.
Yeah. Now Whiteside Alfred, he buys the wheels and all that. Yeah. And these things, they do look. I mean, you can buy a drag radial, you can buy a slick. You can buy a weld, some Pro Stars, or which ones are these wheels right here?
Those are Lumen Stars.
Lumen Stars. They've got those. You can buy those, but here's the kick. That wheel set right there is probably gonna set you back about $80.
Yeah.
But hey, they look just as. If you want to make your car to look just the way it is, those wheels and tires do exist. You just got to get the Camaro body. You probably get in a custom resin.
Yeah.
Build your slot car, frame.
Yeah.
With your motor and all. Put your body on it, and if anybody has a track around here, which me and Oscar did go to one, man, you could hit the button and your car will go. As soon as you lock the button, the car will stop. So you don't even wreck it unless you're turning. But we're not turning. We're drag racing. But, that world is big on the East Coast.
Yeah. But I've been to many car shows, model shows, and there's people walking around that they find out that there's a model show. They'll take their kids and they'll be looking for a model, and I'll have a table full of models. And here comes this guy, and he wants a 63 Impala. And I'll show him. Yeah, I got one. So I bring in 63. Oh, no, I want a 4-door. I said, well, they don't make a 4-door. Well, my car's a 4-door, and I want a 4-door. And he won't buy it because it's not a 4-door. And he can't understand why I don't have one. Or if, and sometimes I'll get a model. They'll come in, and I'll say, I want $15 for it, or $20, or maybe $40, because it's a rare one. Right. And he said, oh, no, I'm not paying that much for it. I can get them at Walmart for $15.
Good luck.
Bye.
Yeah, man.
Good luck trying to find it. I can't even find the 63 Post Falcon. You can find a hardtop everywhere. Well, not much, but a Post.
They never made that model.
You're gonna have to cut maybe a Thunderbolt.
Right.
Is it Thunderbolt? It's
Thunderbolt.
I'm all cool. Yeah, that one. You cut the top off and you put it on that, and then you have to resin the whole thing back up. Not resin, but
and I did the same thing. I had a '56 Ford hardtop model. It's a hardtop, and somehow the body got bent, and it broke the post, the side post. So it's not a good builder. So I cut the top off, and I decided I want to make a sedan out of it. So I bought a '55 Chevy sedan at the show. I'm going to cut that top off and put it on this Ford, and it'll look like a '56 Ford sedan postcard. They never made a model of it, but I'm going to make your own.
So you can do a lot of cool stuff with these cars, and the cool thing about it is that, for example, you may want to show, you may not want to show, but I guarantee you, man, every time somebody who's your buddy that goes in drag races, he walks into your house and he sees all your cars lined up right there, he's going to be like, man, I want one. I wish I had the time. Or they're going to say, why didn't I keep on building the ones I used to build? The stuff always, it's going to generate something in their mind, and they'll go away, and sometimes they may even say, hey, you think you can build me my car? And then, unfortunately, you're going to say, well, they don't make your car. So but we can find one maybe, resin.
Probably 15 years ago, they came out with a 72 El Camino. Yeah. And I bought one. But, and I like the body. But what I did is I whacked the front end off and I put a 70 Camaro front end on it. So with plastic, you can do anything. Yeah. You mold it and make it look. So I had a 72 El Camino with a 70 Camaro front end. And it's still sitting in a box somewhere. I never finished it. Well, years later, Alfred Whiteside, right?
He did his car.
He did a real car. Yeah. He's got a 72 El Camino with a 68 Camaro, I think.
That's like ahead of the game.
He was there that one morning, right?
Yeah, I seen it. Yeah, I seen it. That car's unique.
But it's cool. I'd like to take that car.
And when you hadn't mentioned it yet, but we have a little local group, and you're part of it, and we call ourselves the Plastic Surgeons. Because that's what we do. We do surgery on these cars.
You meet up once a week.
The top guys,
once a month.
Once a month.
The second Tuesday.
The top guys in this little club brought back 2 wins. Oscar and Will with that 3-month build of his beautiful 30s era hot rod. And I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, it's only a few guys that keep coming up for these cars in that class. But man, I seen, I heard Will's name, and I was like, oh man, that's the one. We were like clapping, we were like, oh, we can't yell, but we're gonna clap,
Yeah.
And then I left, man, because I'd been there for a while. But I called Ken. I said, hey man, did anybody else win? And they're like, Oscar took the diorama to second place too. I was like, oh man, that's awesome. So,
yeah, man.
I wish they could be there here today, but it was last minute. So Oscar is representing those who won. And
is that the award right there?
Yeah, this is the award.
Yeah, show that
this
right
is
there.
What they got. There it is, right?
You gotta show that up there to the camera. Look at there, man. Automotive
And what all did you have in your diorama? What
Well,
did you put in there?
they had different diorama classes. I think they had three. They had military, and then they had automotive. And in the automotive, there was several contestants, and a couple guys had a mechanic shop or a service station.
Yeah.
But what I showed wasn't really a diorama, but what I put, it should have really gone into collections. I showed, because the theme of this show was beginnings, the beginnings of modeling back in the 60s or whenever models started. And I took a bunch of 60s models that I had built back in the 60s, and I even had the boxes for them. So I displayed the boxes and the models, and I got second place for diorama. I mean, it's somewhat of a diorama, but a diorama, it really is
like the presentation and
a
everything.
presentation of a junkyard or a drag strip or a gas station or a Whataburger or whatever, something, a scene. It's really a scene. This wasn't a scene, but and that's what I put it in. And I didn't know they had a collectibles class. I probably would have gone in there, and I might have won in that class as well. I don't know.
Yeah, Noah forgot because he entered for us as a family here. He entered he forgot to put in there as the newbies, juniors, or whatever it was, which was young, 16 and younger, something like that. There was only we failed.
Yeah, and that tells you that's this is a dying art. You know, the kids aren't really into it, and you know when you get, I don't have any kids that are young. I've got grandkids. They're not interested. No, even my kids were never interested.
You know, it's the same thing. I mean, the same thing that we've been every time we talk to the people that we know. Drag racing, whether you like it or not, whether somebody has actually looked up and raised an eyebrow, it's a dying art. The new kids today, we've been talking about it, that are graduating today out of school, they're not really following the drag racing circuit no more. They're kind of doing something completely different. Or I don't know if it's a loss, but I don't know. It is, and it's happening with these cars too.
Yeah. So. And you got to be careful. You know, I have talked to the local police department. I've talked to the school district about doing presentations for kids on how to build models, but it's a touchy deal because there's glue involved, there's paint involved, and the kids get into, you don't know what they're going to do. Right. Yeah. So you don't want to be responsible for ruining their lives.
That's true.
You kind of keep an eye on.
That's something that you would think like, of course, but unfortunately, that's the reality. I mean, that's the reality.
But I'll tell you what, though, there's a spin to this. While you don't see them building, hands-on, you do see a shitload of building on video games. Yeah. My sons, when they get onto the video games, which is the most popular one, this is Josh, Forza. There's even some that Street Outlaws, the TV show has done as an app. You can build these cars pretty much. Put engines. Well, and I wish you could paint them, hands on, but
the manufacturers are one step ahead of that because what they've done, they've come out with some models that are already pre-painted.
Yeah.
And they're snap. You don't need glue. Yeah. So if as a club we got together and had
like
a model show, beginner's class, and we got donations and went and bought maybe 20 models that are pre-painted, snap, and then we get 20 kids to sign up. And then what we call it would be a make and take. And what that means is they sit down, they volunteer, we give them a model, they make it there at the show, and at the end of the show, they get to take it home. And that might get them started.
Something.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like, because Legos had this thing that you could download the program for free, and you could build, out of all the Lego pieces that they have, I mean, it's over 100 pieces. You could go and you could build your car. And once you built your car, identical to the way you wanted it with the wheels, lowered height, the whole thing, engine, you could just hit order my Lego kit. And they would mail you that Lego you created. But it got so popular.
What would that cost?
It would cost like, I think, don't quote me, I'm not accurate, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $100, something like that.
Yeah, well, you don't see too many 15-year-olds that.
Well, the problem was that I don't know what age era was. This was about, like I said, about 6, 7, 8 years ago. They were it got so big that they could no longer keep up with
Really?
sending out these custom cars, so they stopped it. But the program is still there. You can still download it if it's still there. I haven't checked. Um, but I built some stuff just to try and see if it was interesting. And I said, man, what if these video games, because these video games are also getting real big with now releasing certain cars that normally you couldn't get your hold, like let's say a Hellcat or something like that. They wouldn't release it because of whatever reason, or let's say a Camaro, a new body Camaro. Now you can go in there, you could build it just like a model car, and then you can start racing it in the program. And how cool would it be if you could hit a button and they would send you a model kit of it? Yeah, if somebody would do that, I mean, with today's 3D printers and all that stuff, I'm sure they could do it just like they did the Legos. And that'd be something that would bring those guys who do a lot of gaming, something to actually hands-on keep, in their room, saying, well, this is when I race, in the game. And that'd be something cool. And I know it probably will never happen. But those are options that I think would always keep.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and kind of a little history of where you can buy old model kits. It's been my experience because I know people all over the country, and I've bought and sold, and I have friends. The majority of them come from California, but a lot of them come from the Northeast. For some reason, the Amish people have them in their attics. I mean, I've bought some models from people up there that come from their attic, and they were mint.
Wow.
Wrapped in their brand new.
Yeah, they're brand new still, and they might have been made in the 70s. But how they got them,
the one stuff they're allowed to do, you build a car.
Yeah, they can build a car, but can't drive one.
And like I say, a lot of them come from Florida. I don't know why Florida, but and if you're into NASCAR, of course, the big circle track cars come from the Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolinas, those areas where they have NASCAR.
Of course.
So that's it, Buck. This is the world of model cars.
Like that, I've fiddled with them, but I knew that there was bodies out there. I knew that there were shows, but of course, you look at how big it is. Yeah, it's a plus.
It's great. I'm gonna just look forward to attending the next few shows, even to be part of the SWAT meet.
But there's a lot to model building. I mean, you can build a model. If you're a novice, you're going to go to Walmart and buy the 2X paint, primer and paint all together.
Right.
But most guys, if you want to do a really nice job, you're going to have your $100 airbrush and mix your own paints.
Yeah.
Duplicate color, real automotive
prep
paint.
Prep it to you got to prep the body, right? You got to do
like
all that prep. Yeah.
Same thing with Hot Wheels. Those old red lines. They were painted with over the metal to give it that candy look, and it was real candy paint. Well, if you don't get the right paint and you put on the Hot Wheels, the paint flakes right off because today they don't have the automotive chemical in it.
The etching.
Yeah, but there is a place online that you can get all that replica candy paint. It's not cheap, but you can get it to restore your cars, and the paint definitely does not chip off. But it's the same paint. You can use this to paint model cars as well, and I guarantee you, man, you'll make them.
I got a model that I've had. I don't know how I got it. I got it in a trade or I bought it. I'm not sure how I got it, but it's a Revell. It's a 57 Ranchero, and it was chopped from the factory. I mean, the model.
Oh, okay.
It came that way. And the guy that I got it from painted it, and it's candy apple red
I saw that.
with a gold base.
Yeah.
Did a nice job, but he forgot to paint the hood. So I got the model painted, but the hood's not painted.
Not matched. Oh, wow.
So somebody could candy apple red it, but it's not going to match the rest of the car.
Black hood. There you go.
That'd be the thing.
Yeah, just kind of blended in. Cellularly.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's cool, man.
Like I said, it's a nice thing. So tell us a little bit what you got there. Are these just some demos you got here?
I kind of like this. This is a resin body, and resin, unlike plastic, styrene is what you get from the model companies. And then these aftermarket companies come up with these resin bodies, and you have to use super glue on them. But they come up with stuff that the model makers don't make.
Yeah.
Right.
So this chassis, Noah, if you could get me that model of the Bantam glass. this model, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
This kit, it's an altered, and it's got a bantam body on it, and it's a pretty cool kit. And so this weekend I was fortunate to find four of them.
Oh, four of them.
The guy
Wow.
had four. I bought two, and I told him to hold the other two, bring them in February, because I got these extra bodies that I need to build. But basically, what you have, this is the chassis for this model with that body. So I didn't use that body. I just put this resin Nova body that already came cut with the roll cage,
for the roll cage
and the engine, and it makes for a good looking model.
Yeah.
It's just something you're not going to buy.
You're not going to find.
So I bought these other bodies. I got a 65 GTO, a 34 Ford, and
let me feel the weight of that resin.
Oh, it's heavy, dude.
It's pretty heavy.
It's badass.
Yeah, they're
good stuff. Quality.
And so these bodies fit those chassis, and I've got plans on what I'm going to do with them. This body's, I think, plastic. It's styrene, but the guy that I got this from was going to make a slot car out of it, and it was a pro mod, and he kind of modified it.
That's Alfred Whiteside's car.
But I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out and build one of those chassis for this. I want a 64 Comet. So that's what this will be. So
cool deal.
This is a gasser. It's a 65 Nova, but with a post.
Yep.
Most of the Novas that you see are hard tops.
And you were telling me about this model right here. You can only get it online.
Well, this company called Mobius.
Yeah.
It's not AMT. It's not Revell. And they make the models, and then they sell them to certain distributors, and they won't go to Walmart. They won't go to Hobby Lobby. They don't go to hobby shops. They go to distributors, and then those guys sell them off to different places. So, but there's you can buy them online, and they're pretty pricey. They're like $35.
I've seen a lot of those kits right there being built by a lot of the guys in Gas for Kings, Gas Hole, Facebook. Man, there's so many cool Chevy 2 gassers that these guys are building. I mean, you showed me one guy. Hey, have you seen this guy's car yet? And I said, no. Man, let me show it to you. And he brought. Man, it's got real chrome foil that they use for it. And I mean, the thing was just immaculate, man. I'm like, this really just shows that you do need to spend at least 2 weeks on the body just to make it.
A lot of it comes with experience. Some of these guys have a lot of experience. There's a guy named Don Yost, YOST, and when you see his builds, his is separate from anybody else. They're really clean. He must have, I don't know what kind of eyesight he has. Everything is detailed. And if he paints the chrome alongside of a 56 Chevy Bel Air, there ain't, if I was to do it, you're going to see some runoff here and there, some jagged stuff. But this guy is just perfect. But, there are some guys that are just perfect. They're
patient,
what do you
steady
call them?
hand.
Yeah. They're not professional. They're just perfectionists.
Perfectionist, I got you.
And I build to satisfy me, and I'll try to do the best I can. And if it's offline, it's offline. It's going to go in the showcase.
It's like one of the other members, Vera. He builds these really nice, super big cars. Yeah. And then when it comes to the model cars, he goes, "I just don't have time," and it drives him nuts. I think because he wants to build it as good as his big cars. It's always funny to hear him every time.
I envy him because I gave him some models of some 30s, 34 Ford, and some other old models, 36, and he built them, and he did a better job than I could have done.
And he was trying to outsource all the correct wheel sizes.
He wanted the artillery wheels. He wanted, But then he put them in his garage by a window, and the window was open, and a storm came through and blew them right off the shelf, and they fell on the ground. Yeah. And he don't care. To him, it's just a plastic model.
Yeah, he's got his big one in the garage.
Yeah, he's got his big toy.
So we scheduled Barrett. We're gonna have to reschedule him for after this taping for next week or so, because he's a little busy with trying to get his top done.
Yeah, he's getting a top done. There's some guy out of Oregon that does tops on these hot rods, and he's got a 32 Ford. And this guy's a special guy. I mean, he charges
custom top.
custom top, and it's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
And he's driving from Oregon down here to do
Wow.
several tops. I
Yeah.
think he was in Oklahoma this past weekend.
So he's making round road
He's making
trips.
his rounds, yeah.
He makes
Awesome.
around, but he gets $4 or $5 grand to do it, and if he can do it in a day or two,
He can
that's
come
easy
out pretty
money.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, upholstery builders.
Oh yeah, they got you,
They
man.
make some cash doing that stuff. They're really good at it. And
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I tried to get one. I thought I got a little roadster, it's a Model A
Yeah.
roadster, and I want to do a top. And I called an upholstery shop in Austin, and he said, my dad used to do it, and I can do it, but I won't do it. He said, I got way too much work.
Yeah.
And if I did do it, it's going to cost you more than you want to pay. I said, well, try me.
Yeah.
And he gave me a price. I said, you know what? I can afford that. I want it done.
Yeah.
He said, well, I got so much going on right now. Let me call you back in 6 months. Because I'm not sure I can afford this guy that's coming here
yeah,
tomorrow.
this one might be a little more. And by all means, that guy you're talking about, that's Interiors by Vern. Vern did a lot of show-winning cars back in the early '60s. I think it's his dad, and he did one very famous vehicle from back in the day. It was I think it was a '53 or '54 Chevy truck. It was called my True Love, and it won the Autorama shows back in the day. And this guy's dad was the one who did these interiors. So yeah, every time you see Interiors by Vern, guys, you're talking about history here in the Central Texas area, and at these national shows. This is the guy that pretty much put a lot of Texas cars in hot rod magazines with his interiors. So yeah, he's nothing short. he's like one of the best. So man, that'd be super cool just to sit in your car, man. If he does your interior or your top or whatever, that'd be awesome. Looking forward to that.
That's cool.
Maybe we can get him on one day out here.
Definitely.
Yeah, but there's guys, and I've been to guys in different parts of the country where you think I got a lot of models. These guys have 10 times what I got. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Really?
Oh yeah, every time I go, well, just every time that I see something in magazines, I like to read them. Example, there was a guy somewhere in England. He had built nothing but period correct dragsters and funny cars, gassers back in the day, and through all his entire life, he would scratch build them because some of these cars didn't exist. Right. And the NHRA or Wally Parks Museum, I can't remember which one, and you guys can find it online. When he passed away, they donated all the models to the museum, and so when you go to the museum, or if you can find them in magazines, they have close-ups of these cars. And you're talking about the 1955 NHR championships of dragsters. They don't exist on models, but they're there. And one thing that caught my eye is that the winner from 1955 was the guy from Houston, and that dragster never existed in model car. But I'm looking at this article and I'm like, oh, the guy built these cars. He built them from scratch. They're there.
And any kind of museum, I can think of two. Speed, what's the name of that aftermarket? Speedway Motors.
Oh yeah.
Speedy Bill had a 5-story building built there in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And he's dedicated one whole floor to model cars, and there's a ton of model cars. Don Garlett's, if you ever go to the Don Garlett's
Still on
museum,
my list. Yeah.
there's not a whole floor, but he's got a section dedicated to this model car. Nice. And guys that build model cars in that area just donated them to that museum. And they're, for somebody like me, I love looking at.
Yeah,
just
like that.
And it's funny, I was at 3 years ago, I went to Bonneville.
Yeah.
And on the way back, we took the long route. We took I-80 all the way to Lincoln, Nebraska, and we went to visit the Speedway Motor Museum. Yeah. And I'm up there looking at some models and taking pictures. And I take a picture and I post one of the pictures that was a round car that I like, and I posted it on one of my Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Well, one of the members said that he lives in Fort Worth. He said he built it. And he showed me pictures of when it was, how it was built. And he's a friend of mine. Yeah, we were mutual friends, but he said that model he showed a picture of, I built that.
Wow.
in the museum, it didn't have his name.
How did it end up in the museum?
He donated.
Oh, did he? Okay. Yeah. Well, that kind of sucks when they don't put your name on it.
Oh, yeah.
Hey guys, put names on people's stuff.
Well, some people don't want to be known.
Yeah, I guess so.
Some people are not.
That's true. But interesting, man. Well, I appreciate you coming out here, and I mean, we could talk days.
Yeah, eye opening. It's eye opening.
Yeah, definitely. Give us a little bit. When's our next show?
Well, we meet the second Tuesday of every month, so the next show will be October 11th.
Okay.
7 o'clock at my shop in Taylor. And
Plastic surgeon.
The plastic surgeon. So
How many guys you got coming?
right now we got 5. And I've got a couple more that may be coming, but there's during the week it's kind of tough.
Of course,
One guy lives in Marble Falls. He's not so sure he can get away. But he said I can be there at 7, but I don't know that I want to drive home at 11.
Yeah, you can learn from these guys though. As me being a newbie with them,
I'm sure.
these guys do some excellent stuff, and I learn every day.
Oh yeah, I mean I know it. It's an art. It's an art.
And then now we're going to go to the swap meet model car show in February.
Yeah, we'll probably be as a group go to the San Antonio show in New Braunfels, and then hopefully go to the one in San Marcos.
Yeah.
Rub elbows with some of these guys from out of the country.
Yeah. Hopefully then we'll have some shirts.
Yeah, by then we'll be Dr. Paul, and I'll be Dr. Vera.
I'll learn my degree.
There you go.
I gotta go.
You graduated.
I gotta go through the steps.
You graduated.
Yeah. But we're getting there. Me and Noah are getting there. Josh is he's observing. He's kind of wondering if he should put a cam in his car or put a plastic valve cover on a model car. But he's good. He's real meticulous about doing his stuff. He's real slow. He's real careful. He actually has built a Dukes of Hazzard car, and he did that. Well, he did. How old were you? About 10. Yeah, he played hooky from home, and I said, okay, well, your homework is going to be put that model car together, and I'm not going to teach you. You're going to get the instructions, and man, for being his first time,
I don't want to speak too much about it, but a few years ago, probably 8-10 years ago, that Confederate flag on the Dukes of Hazzard was kind of outlawed or kind of shunned in the model car world.
Is that right?
Yeah, because the model car was going real. It was real popular. It was bringing a lot of money, and then all of a sudden it just don't even bring one
because of that Confederate flag. But that's pretty cool. I have one car with a Confederate flag on it. It's a little Nova like this. It's white, and I put it on the roof just like you did.
Yeah.
And I posted it, and some people made some comments about it. But
yeah.
Well, it was a TV show. It was on a country network for a long time. So if from my era, I grew up with the Dukes of Hazzard, and John Snyder, he has his Dukes of Hazzard car, and he puts on his shows. And
heck, think about it. I got an orange 56. I might ought to put a flag on.
I've seen that one with the blue windows. And we can order a custom wrap for it and take it to the track and park it down at the Capitol.
Well, cool, man. Like I said, we got some upcoming shows. Oscar, appreciate you coming out, man. It's the eye opener, and Paul, thanks for inviting him out. Like I said,
it was
a good episode. Like I said, it's gonna put the perspective of like what you put it. It's not just somebody can go bam, wham, bam.
Yeah. I hope that some of your viewers surely are model builders.
Of course.
I like to think of, people say, well, there's no model builders in the city of Taylor, or when I lived in the valley. And I think they're closet builders, because I would go to Walmart and
see some guys
would be empty.
Yeah.
So somebody's buying
them.
Somebody's buying and building.
And this show that I just went to, it's here in Austin, Texas. It had over 1,000 people in and out. So for you guys, if you think that this is not popular, or maybe it's a kid's world, believe me, you're going to be the kid at this show.
Well, it's a hobby. It's no different than playing golf.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good point. I mean, it's a hobby. That way, being like I said, I like to think of it, if it's something you enjoy, that's the main thing. Right? You get pleasure out of it. This is the thing. You build something like, hey, that's my career. Right? That's what it comes down to.
As I was growing up, my parents would allow me to build them in the house. I had them in the house. When I got married, my ex-wife allowed them in the house for 30 some odd years. And then we got divorced, and then I lived by myself. So I had a a house full of models. I mean, I had 2 bedrooms, my living room, my kitchen were full of models. Of course, I had thousands of them. Right. Now, this new lady I live with, she loves models, and she enjoys them, but I can't have them in the house.
Yeah,
that's why you got the shop. They had to build a shop for them.
Yeah, but it's a 1,200 square foot house, and so I built a 1,700 square foot building, and that's where I do my
You've
stuff.
got all your stuff. That's even better.
And I love going there because
it's a nice
kids' world. You know, big toys.
Oh, my son went there that day, and he was going. He was going. We can't buy him. Can't buy him. He was wanting to buy them all.
Oh yeah, Noah sat down in that dragster. Now your kid sat in that dragster.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He loved it, man. So it's a pleasure. But again, Oscar, thanks for coming out, and we're gonna wrap up the show. And then, by the way, we're gonna be back at Oscar's shop on the 9th, I believe, for Santa, I believe, right?
Santa.
Santa. So that's Sunday. This Sunday. Yeah.
October 8th. Vintage Drag Little River.
Yep, Little
We're gonna
River
go see him. We'll be taking some photos, some video. Come Sunday, go to your shop, get a nice interview about Santa and the creation of his shocks, and
the gasser and his Southeast
I'll get it all set up. My wife's out of town, so we got free reign to the shop.
There you go.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing Ronnie. I've known Ronnie over 30 years.
Yeah,
that's even better. He's cool from Corpus. I'm from Corpus.
Right.
So, I've known Ronnie a long time.
And he's gonna have his drag car because he's coming straight from the track.
Good. I hope he starts it. We'll wake up the neighbors.
You're going to see the car at your place. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're going to think, let's go. Just light them up, man. Let's go. Yeah, well, all right, guys, man. We're going to wrap it up. And again, thanks, Josh, for coming out. And we guys see you guys soon. Have a good one.
Bye.